I'm really sick and tired of remote ID already. The only place I see in drones where it is needed is beyond visual line of sight flying. That way, if I go out from my house here and fly over the city that's a mile away, like I should be able to do, anybody in that city can look up with remote ID and see that. I've done that almost every day. I'm compliant, and it should make them just turn back to their business. If you don't get remote ID from something like that, then that should upset people and make them wonder if bad actors are up to something. It's mostly a thing for the comfort of the public. ADSB is automatic dependence surveillance for aircraft. It's a module you put in your aircraft, and it just sits there and broadcasts your GPS location, your direction, your speed, your altitude, and basic things like that. It can go very complex, doing all sorts of sensors in commercial airplanes and stuff. But basically, it's just those small parameters like remote ID. And what it does is the ADSB circuits in airplanes kind of let each other know, hey, I'm here. They'll warn you when you get within 5 miles of an airplane or 10 miles, that kind of thing. It's just kind of a heads up. It was because radar was just getting too expensive to put on light aircraft. People didn't use it well, etc., etc. It's an accident prevention feature. It is required as of January 1st, 2020 on light aircraft. Now, people are railing against ADSB on light aircraft just like they are on remote ID. I looked up here what percentage of light aircraft have ADSB, and I got back just a little bit of information. Only 44% of Georgia aircraft are equipped with ADSB. All commercial airliners are. I don't know about the other states. I think it's about the same. They are not embracing that, just like they're not embracing remote ID. They are two flavors of the same thing. I will put this, and this is again the requirements from the FAA. I'm not going to put this in the notes. But this is a little fun program. This is ADSB Exchange. This shows you all the planes currently in flight, whether they're commercial or like this one right here is a little Cessna 172. You can see it shows right here. It's a Cessna 172. Here's below it all the information that ADSB device is squawking constantly. These two airplanes right here, the Learjet 35, and this, boy, it looks like a Galaxy. It's a military float plane, it looks like. They're basically close to each other, and they're letting everybody know what they're doing. I'll put a link to this in the description because you can go up and play with it for the whole United States. You can zoom in on the Charlotte airport right here. I frequently watch my wife like she was flying today. I can tell her, well, why are you not going to the terminal? You're way out here in this side of the parking lot instead of going to a terminal. She goes, I don't know. You can, well, let's see. We'll go to some others here real quick. You can figure this out on your own. There's Athens, Georgia. Here's Atlanta. I like to go here. and watch this airport operate. It's got 2 runways on this side. It's got 2 runways on this side. You can click on an airplane here. I can see he's already up off the ground. Here's one that's getting ready to take off. We'll click on him. He's at 6 knots. Oops, I usually change this to miles per hour in the setup. And he's taxiing out onto the runway. He has no altitude right now. Here's the one in front of him taking off. He's getting ready to contact departure. We can see the one I have hooked here is now up to 39 knots. They're rolling. They're not airborne yet. Here's one coming in for a landing. He's at 1,225 feet, 142 knots, slowing down. This one I've got hooked here, just lifted off the ground and has a, whoops, no, it hasn't lifted off yet. There we go. Now he's up at 256 feet per minute climb rate. You can sit here and do all sorts of stuff on these planes. When you hook one that's coming in from someplace, it will put a tail behind it. I can go over here and click that I want to look at that individual airplane. Boop, there's that individual airplane. And I can see now that she originated, looks like Jacksonville, Florida. No, that'd be Jacksonville, North Carolina. There's same cities in many different places. And he's getting ready to land in Atlanta. Likely he'll be leaving Atlanta going back to Jacksonville, North Carolina. This is all the current flights in the air doing a DSB. If you want to, you can go up here and sort out all the airplanes except for the military flights over the United States right now. These will be all military aircraft. If you click here, this is a passenger type military airplane. Here's a helicopter. This is a Tex 2 Beechcraft. Here's another one of those. I was looking at this one time, and out in this area around Arizona, there was that airplane that flew for like 54 days circling around out there, and I watched him for days. Here's some fighter jets. Boy, they don't tell you much over here about those, do they? Sometimes they don't. See if we can find a couple of more fighters in here, or even an E-2 like I used to work on. Don't see too many fighters up right now. That's another small. These are military airplanes. There's a lot of military airplanes that are just for transport. There's usually a squadron down here that are just playing around with each other, kind of doing war missions. I don't see any of those up today. And you'll see on their track, they're just staying in one area and have a track all over the place. But if you go back to all airplanes, it's pretty daunting. But again, you can scroll in. Let's go back towards where I live. And let's look for some joyriders. This one it probably is. You can see this one took off from the Asheville airport, flew the pattern a little bit, and then left and went out here and flew some circles over here in Brevard. It's just a joyride. This tells you everything about it. It's a Cessna 172. It's currently at 4,800 feet. It's currently doing 103 knots. Man, I'll change that back to miles per hour. Oh, aeronautical, imperial. There we go. 120 miles per hour. We got a lot of airplanes at the Asheville Airport picking up passengers. Got one here coming in for a landing. Seems to be a small, probably private flight. He's currently at 202 miles per hour at 4,700 feet in the landing pattern. This boy's getting awful close to him, but he's probably going to hook in behind him and land. Who knows? We can individualize that one again and see that that aircraft came from Alabama. Tuscaloosa, Alabama to Asheville, probably a private flight. This is all done by ADS-B units. Same thing, same size, same small nature as remote ID. Yeah, you can see here he's hooking to get right behind that boy. He better watch out for the wingtip vortex though. Here's a big commercial airliner. You can see based on this at the bottom, color coded, he's up above 30,000 feet. That's a Boeing 738. Passengers on it, 479 miles an hour at 34,000 feet. There's a lot of things you can do on this. There's actually ways to go in and add the tower frequencies and the tower radios to this so you can listen to what everybody's saying. What the tower's saying to these aircraft, what these aircrafts are saying to the towers, and what the aircrafts are saying to each other. It's fun for me to play with this. God, that darn humidifier came on behind me. There, I killed that. Our little plane we were tracking is down to 151 miles per hour at 2,200 feet. He's almost over the threshold. That airport's at 2,200 feet almost, down to 144 miles per hour. We can mouse over it and see it directly. 138 miles per hour, 136. He's over the threshold. He's probably flaring. Probably getting ready to set it down. We're still at 64 feet per minute sink rate. And it looks like he's actually down and really losing speed now. Honestly, for me, I worked 4 years on aircrafts in the military. I got my private pilot's license while I was in the military. I do a lot of things having to do with the airlines and aircraft constantly. Some of my best friends own airplanes. We go out joyriding. This is funny. This orange one right here is landing in Charlotte. But this one at 35,000 feet, although it's passing through the Charlotte control zone, it's so high, they're just letting those pass over. This one's probably coming up here to hook in for landing, the yellow one. These two purple ones are just passing by. You can see this airplane here. They've been out joyriding all over the place here. Here's another one. They're passing very close together. Who knows? Here's another one. He's been out there joyriding too. So is this one really. Go back. The little Cessna 172 did exactly what I thought it was. He's down to 86 miles an hour. He's getting ready to land at the Asheville Regional Airport. Bless his heart. He's being chased by, ooh, don't tell me what that one is. No call sign. That's probably a ghost. Started to say he's being chased by a commercial. So, this is fun to play with. This is the ADS-B system for all flying aircrafts in the United States. You can see the ADS-B system is pretty overloaded. And then we can look at the rest of the world too. We can also drop out the civilian aircraft in Europe. And we have some, that's a passenger type. We have some aircraft, military aircraft up there. The ADS-B system, the FAA just thought it was getting overloaded too badly, and they didn't want to add what they thought would be millions of UAS pilots to that system. So they created a system sort of like it called Remote ID. And for beyond visual line of sight, it's just good, in my humble opinion. ADS-B has been put into copter years ago. The cube type Pixhawk flight controllers have been set up to do ADS-B for a while. And ArduPilot has the ability to make your airplane or quad avoid ADS-B airplanes that come into its sight a certain distance away. Let's see, these are all the flight controllers that have the ability to do ADS-B natively. I was looking to show you the ADS-B avoidance. You can set up ArduPilot so that your plane flying beyond visual line of sight could turn away from an ADS-B light aircraft coming at it. In other words, besides the difference in speed, they should never be able to collide. The Cessna 172 should never be able to touch you. Now that's not true, because the Cessna can fly faster than you can. So if it wanted to, it could overrun you. But the ADS-B on the ArduPilot would be trying to automatically avoid that. So even though this has been set up, the ADS-B system just got so overloaded that the FAA decided not to use that for UAS systems. They want to use remote ID. I see nothing at all in recreational flying of RC airplanes that needs ADS-B or remote ID, period, except for beyond visual line of sight, so that the people that see your flights can quickly say that, oh, that's not a bad actor. Oh, he shouldn't be here. He's flying over a prison. I'm going to turn him in. I have no problem with people turning people in for breaking rules. I try not to break any rules. People are getting on my ass just because I think remote ID is the path to beyond visual line of sight flights. Without complying with that, it will never happen for you. That's what I want. Visual line of sight flying RC airplanes is okay, but man, I've got my ham license. I've got equipment that'll go 30 miles. Maybe not the batteries in all my platforms, but that's what I want to do. I'm 70 years old. I've had bypass surgery. They don't really want to issue me a flight physical medical certificate anymore to fly myself. I don't really want to pay all the money. This is the way I could get back in the air as if I was flying a real airplane again. That's what I want. And that's the only reason I see that remote ID is needed, is for keeping people from doing what they shouldn't. I really wouldn't be doing anything I shouldn't. But for me, it would make the people viewing my plane coming over them comfortable. I don't mind making the people comfortable instead of scaring the hell out of them. Uh, my heart surgeon asked me during one session, because he knows I do drones, he says, "Boy, we saw a drone come down through our neighborhood the other day, just right down the street. What do you think he was doing?" I said, "Well, if he just flew by down the street, he was probably just transversing from his house to someplace he wanted to fly. Now, if he stopped, dropped below the tree lines, came up into your front yard at 25 feet, he's probably not just going from one place to another. He's probably looking in your yard. You wouldn't want him doing that any more than you would want him to walk down the street, walk up in the middle of your yard, take out his phone, and start videoing stuff in your yard. You have a real right not to have people doing that. Now, people think they're going to look in bedroom windows with these drones and stuff. That's because they're ignorant of drones, and they don't know how loud most of them are. You're not going to take a Flame Wheel 550 with 12-inch props and sneak up on a house at 20 feet. Shouldn't be doing that to start with. But transversing that person's property at 200 feet is a whole different thing. What is wrong with allowing them to look up with their phone and go, "Well, that guy's registered. He's doing what he's supposed to"? I doubt he's even interested in us at all. He's just passing over. I'll go back to what I said yesterday about all this. If I go to the airport, rent a Cessna 150, fill it full of 60 gallons of 118 octane fuel, go flying anywhere I want to over the local city or over local neighborhoods at 520 feet, nothing's going to happen. If I decide to make 3 passes over a house where they're having a party, the first pass they're going to notice me. The next 2 passes there's going to be all sorts of people looking up and waving and jumping up and down and coming out of the house. "Come look, there's an airplane flying over the house." That started in the barnstormer days, back when they first started flying, and everybody was just fascinated by airplanes. Nobody's ever really gotten frightened of an airplane flying over their house at 550 feet, and they won't to this day. However, these small drones, people are vilifying them. They're saying they're going to swoop in and look in your bathroom window at you taking a shower. Nobody's going to do that. And if they do, you want to be able to look at that platform with remote ID and turn them in for doing that. If a light helicopter, 2-person helicopter, flew over property, people would be waving at it. Now, if it came down within 50 foot of the ground and started hovering stationary behind your barn where you've got your still, people might get a little mad. It's more the behavior of the individuals, not the platforms itself. But it's not completely like just an airplane passing overhead. It is the thought that they're photographing you, videoing you doing something wrong. Had those perceptions never gotten going about drones, we would pass over a house and we turn around, we come back and we wave the wings at them as we pass by. They would be looking up, waving at us, smiling and stuff. That's the big problem. So I see that the FAA is trying to let us fly beyond visual line of sight by using remote ID. They say that's what's going on there. They said that long before September of this year that factory-built drones with remote ID built in would already be allowing them to go beyond visual line of sight. They haven't. So rather than rail against remote ID for everything. You should only rail at it for everything except beyond visual line of sight. It's needed for beyond visual line of sight. Beyond visual line of sight is never going to happen without it. No way, no how. But as far as anything other than beyond visual line of sight, there's no need on recreational drones of any size, any weight. I don't care if they weigh 100 pounds. If it's just going to be flown locally over a AMA airfield, there's no need to have remote ID on that. So, again, I'll put a link to this program in there so you can play with it. But this shows the ADSB system and why it's up and why it's useful. And remote ID is just a new copy of this system because they didn't want to overload this system, and they wanted to have a separate system like this where you could come up and check the validity of a platform flying over your property. I see it as only a good thing. I see it for a bad thing for everything except beyond visual line of sight. A tiny whoop can't do it. You're not going to put half the weight in a remote ID or ADSB device on it and have it functional. Not needed. Drone racing, stupid to have remote ID on it. Freestyle, stupid to have a remote ID on it. RC flying at an AMA field, stupid to require remote ID on it. The only single thing is beyond visual line of sight, and it's needed for that, in my opinion. That's why I'm fighting for it. And I do believe it's 100% a bunch of junk on any other recreational vehicle doing any other type of flying except beyond visual line of sight. Thank you.